can catch some of the questions.
Yes, they're gonna be questions, so you can share it. Should we share it on? Yeah, let's share it. We're gonna share it right now on your Chonda Pierce, so people.
It is. I shared it earlier, so I
Oh
hope
yes.
you get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And no, the live one right now. It should be. It should be live.
There's a
So
way of saying whoop, whoop, whoop.
we are live. We are live. Yes, and yeah, if you want to go to.
Careful. We're live already.
We're comedians. It doesn't matter. I mean, what we do in
Well,
life is always live. It's if you want. Yeah,
well,
if you want to go to Comedian Nazareth and share it
hey,
at Comedian
there
Nazareth, the
it is.
fan page.
Yeah, a lot of
We're
people
on.
look for it.
Okay,
Woohoo!
good. Can I introduce you officially?
Yes.
Well,
Please
ladies and
do.
gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another episode podcast, Laughter for All with Comedian Nazareth. We come to you now every Tuesday during the quarantine at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And with me, right, the number one selling comedian in the country, ladies and gentlemen. If you think about it in a word, she is amazing. I've never been to an event. I toured with this young lady. I opened for her. We also toured with Mark Lowry and others. And
Yes.
I've never seen an event Chonda Pierce's at that was not sold out weeks before the
Wow.
show. So it's really amazing. She's an Emmy nominated and best-selling comedian. Chonda, or as they call her on Billboard magazine, the country comic, has been making audience laugh for
That's
more.
a weird one, isn't it? That's a weird one. Country comic.
Yeah, and you're not. Yeah, I don't. You're like the women's comic. Every woman in the world should listen to you and watch you because you know what? I'm gonna forget about. No, I have to read it because because it's really good. Pierce is fresh off an incredible year after debuting her movie Shonda Pierce. Well, you did Laughing in the Dark.
I
You also
did.
did the last movie I went to the theaters and saw was called Unashamed. That was great.
Yes.
And then there was also a movie in between, right?
Laughing in the Dark. There was one called Enough, and then
Mhm.
there was one called Unashamed.
Unashamed. And
Well, they were documentaries, and they were Fathom events in the movie theaters. Yeah, and they were it was a blessing to get to do them. I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to figure out. See,
no, I know.
I am so trying to figure out how to do this, Nazareth. Here, you have tackled it. I know there's a way I could share this now with what is going on
I can help you share it on your site.
on the Chonda Pierce page.
Yeah. Yes, we can. We'll help you because we want your fans also to enjoy this.
I
And
just know
let's
they
see.
love you. You're
Oh,
the one, and that whole, let me just tell you this funny story about that whole the number one best-selling comic in the world, whatever they say.
uh-huh.
So funny. It really just means I am the most awarded female comic in history, which blows my mind. And when they had the little ceremony for me at my agency, and they were having a little party, I remember talking to one of the fellas from the RIAA, which is the people that give you gold records and platinum records. And I said, I just find this so hard to believe because there's Joan Rivers. I mean, there's Amy Schumer, there's Ellen DeGeneres. And they said, I know, we did the math twice because we've never heard of you.
It's funny, but you know what? You used to do the Women's of Faith, and that's like how many 20 to 50,000 women every night.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I think that's when, and I'm blessed because I got in when people were actually buying DVDs and VHS. Now they don't even buy a CD. You can't even, I think they're probably using my DVDs as, doorstops. No one buys product anymore. They just stream it. Have you found that to be true in your career?
It's true to a degree. There's still some towns around the country that is still they're still buying my 8 tracks and CDs. No,
I try.
no.
Everybody's going, when are you going to make a new one? And I talked to Andrew Tenenbaum, which Andrew really well.
Oh, I love
We
him.
talk about it, and it's so expensive to make them. And it used to be, I remember in my career, I was really blessed. You could make one. You could spend $40,000, $50,000 making one. Now that same video is going to cost a whole lot more to make. But you could make one, and then by the end of the year, you would have gotten your money back because you would have sold a lot of them. Not now. You'll never get your money
Not
back.
now.
Yeah.
You know what? How about your books? You have great books. So why is that?
I don't have books. I mean, I have a book I just finished writing, and I do believe it'll be the last book I ever write. And as a matter of fact, I think the title of it's called Last Looks. And yeah, this is it. And I learned that phrase when I was in the middle of making a movie last summer, and I'm so excited about that. I do have a movie coming out that I have the major role in a major motion picture, and it's called Roll With It. And it's a comedy, but it's a feel-good comedy. It's a family comedy, and it'll be in all the movie theaters and all that. And I feel really excited about that. And there's this phrase that they use constantly, right? You know, you rehearse the scene, they get the cameras ready, and then right before the director says action, he says last looks. And that means the makeup people come in and they straighten that last piece of hair, and then they put the last little bit of makeup and they fix your collar. You know, they do all that thing. It's called last looks. And then they go, okay, set, and then ready, and then action. I heard that phrase last looks a million times, and I thought, what a great analogy for our lives, in that I feel like I am in the last looks of what life is going to look like for me. I think we're in the last days. I don't want to be morbid to everybody, but I think we're in the last days, you know, and I am fighting with this piece of hair right here.
I know. It's bothering. It's killing me. No, I'm just kidding.
It's ADD. That's ADD me. I'm going to take my glasses off, then I can't see it. But if I do feel like this is my opportunity in my career, that I do feel retirement coming on.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You were just in the White House how many times in the last few months? How many times?
I go a lot. I have gone often, but I am on part of the conference call group, you know, for evangelicals and for the Women for Trump Coalition. And, you know, and that's what's so funny. I've gotten kicked off Facebook a few times. They don't like your politics too much if you're too conservative. But do you find, and I'm proud of you because you speak your mind, but I get aggravated at the artist who won't speak up because they don't want to lose a fan, or they don't want to get kicked off Facebook. To me, that always makes it about, it's not about you telling the truth. It's about you surviving. And I think that's a shame.
Right. Because everybody else speak their truth in the entertainment business. Why can't we speak our truth?
And we can't, because we get in trouble. But that doesn't make me stop speaking the truth, or my truth. And I think that's a shame. That's what I get aggravated about Facebook. You know, there is no such thing as free speech. We wish there was, but there really isn't. Not on the internet. You know, they'll take you off really quickly. There was this thing I got in the mail one time that said, pray for this church in India that's going through this persecution. And it came from, on the top of it said Hillsong United. And I get a newsletter from Hillsong, you know, that's one of the mega churches out there. And I like to know what's going on in Australia and all that. And they said, pray for this church. And that so touched my spirit that I thought, oh, I'm going to share this. And so I shared it on my Facebook page, said, pray for this church. These people, 200 people were killed, martyred for Christ, blah, blah. Well, come to find out that it wasn't true. But I didn't know that. I was just asking for prayer.
Right.
And I got kicked off Facebook for a while. And that means they were just looking for something to get me on, is what my Facebook, my social media guy says. He's always going to fight for me, you know. And I hate that we're in the place where that truth is subjective for so many people. If it fits their agenda, they'll call it their truth. But they don't understand absolute truth. And there is absolute truth. There is absolute right and wrong. There's not gray area. There is, And so that's the frustrating thing to me. I can
I
understand
don't want to
people.
interrupt you. There's a burglar in your house. There's a lady trying to steal
There was
and
a
break
lady
in.
walking by. I know she'll die
Uh,
that she'll know
do
she's
you
on
know her?
across. The whole nation is watching Glenda walking.
Do you know her? I just want to be say
I
I
do
can call
know her.
nine.
My assistant came to spend the night with me a couple of nights because I'm
Uh,
just so lonely. This thing is
I
killing me.
know that's
Oh,
hard.
yeah,
Well,
but we've been quarantined for for 2 or 3 weeks, and we know we neither one of us have anything. So we're like, let's watch movies. Let's have a girls' night.
well, let me comment on what you just said earlier. See,
Yeah,
I was born in Israel. I grew up in Kuwait. I lived in a country where there's no freedom of speech. And
yeah.
in the Middle East, there's no freedom of speech. So what happened? There used to be
In the
something
what?
called either
In the Malays,
in the Middle East, Middle
Middle
East.
East. Yeah,
You
yeah.
remember my English is
I love your accent. Yeah,
thick. And he, what do you call it? They have secret police. They call it
yeah.
religious police. If you
Yes,
say anything that's against the government or against the religion,
right.
they get you.
Yeah.
And that would happen in other countries.
Wouldn't
You
that
know,
be wild if we had this?
we
Nobody would
have
have
it.
a
We have
job.
it here. We have it here. I'll tell you why. There's people that volunteer to be the police now without, and their job is to
Yeah, but I'm just
shut.
saying they don't arrest. If you say something nasty about this administration, they're like, woohoo!
Right. But it's not
We're
from
in
the
the country.
government.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not government police. It's a police that was established just to shut anybody who's saying the truth. But it's
yeah,
okay. You know what? I tell people, I said, you know what? Get me any president who would vote pro-life and
yeah,
pro-family, and I'll vote for them. It has nothing to do with the name who's in office. That's
yeah.
my take on it.
Or their
But tell me,
demeanor. Now we've got one in office. Let me tell you, there are times I watch the debriefing every day to
me
see,
too.
and I go, "You're just making this so hard to defend you, buddy." It is. He's not my pastor. He's not my spiritual leader. He is. He's not the most president we've ever had. He's not a polished politician. He's not a great speaker. But I think for a time such as this, we probably needed some kind of businessman bulldog in the White House to plow us through this mess.
You're
And
right.
now that's not to say there's someone else out there that could have done just as well. But for my personal agenda as a conservative, for what I believe in, and like you said, I believe life begins at conception. I
Right.
believe life, I have strong personal convictions as a Christian woman. And so I want to vote for someone who's going to govern with those things in mind. And and I was just as respectful about Barack Obama. If he'd invited me to the White House, I'd have gone. I'd have been so excited to meet him at the inauguration for Barack Obama. I said, "Oh my," because you know me, I'm very political minded. I sat on my couch with my girlfriends, and we had a party, election party. And when he was, inaugurated, we had an inauguration party, even though we didn't even vote for him, but he was our president, and I
Right.
cried at his inauguration. I was so touched and so blessed by this man who seems to be a really great father, a man of color, to rise up and become the leader of our country. It was the most beautiful night. I just cried. I thought it was fantastic. But
Right.
but that same sentiment is not available to we who have decided that this Trump guy is who we've got and this is who we're going to stand behind. No, they
No.
hate you for it. I'm talking hate. I have death threats. I have horrible emails. I have, because I've been very vocal. And it's interesting, speaking of the whole Facebook thing, I have 790,000 followers. And what's interesting, it stayed when I first came out about the president. I got about, I got unfriended in one day, 25,000 people.
25,000 people
But
in
then I
one
got
day.
friended 80,000 people. I mean, but slowly, every year of my career, ever since I've been on Facebook anyway, I have had a growth every year, just a steady growth where there's a pattern. We're learning about these patterns and ratios in this COVID-19. But I've had a steady growth until it finally got to about 780 or whatever, and it stays. and they won't, I can't accept anymore. When I try to send out a notice, it only goes to about half of the people instead of all of the
Wow.
people. And so you're right. We're there. This is not, these social media platforms are a blessing to all of us. And don't get me wrong, there are some great people that work for Facebook, I'm sure, and some wonderful folks, but it's still privately owned. And so you have to play by their rules a little bit until something comes along that we really say this is free for all, then this is the game we have to
Yeah.
play. And at the same time, I have to be very, very grateful because I love getting the chance to talk to people and see people,
Yes.
especially now when we're so quarantined.
One time you liked one of my videos where I love to get people at my show to get two single people married, and I had
Oh
7
yeah,
weddings and 40,000 people just because you liked it, you shared it. I had 40,000 people watch it in one day. So, but
grateful.
I wanna dig deeper who Shonda is. Shonda, you're the most person I know that have been through more pain than anybody else I know.
Yeah,
And
but
I
a
know.
lot of comedians have. A lot of
Yeah, but not
comedians are
as
messed up.
not.
You're the most healthy comedian I've ever known.
You know why I don't get death threats? Because I'm
Literally,
Middle Eastern. I'll blow myself up with them. I don't care.
it's the truth.
Uh,
It's funny when you really dissect some of the past of a lot of comedians. A
uh,
lot of people come from some great tough times, and and you too. It wasn't easy growing up in the Middle East, and it
no,
was
no, no.
certainly not easy when you transitioned to live here. Not transitioned your gender, but when you made that switch to become an American.
I was a
And
Fatima before,
yeah,
so I
exactly.
did
And
transition. No, no, no.
everybody, I'm sure, when you first moved here, thought you were like, you're either going to run the 7-Eleven or blow us up. That's what they all thought when you came to America, and so it wasn't easy for you either. I
I,
mean, I totally get that. But you're right. I have had my share of grief, and I've had all kinds of grief, and
let's
grieving.
start from the beginning. You were
Yeah.
born. Your dad was not a good guy, right?
Oh, he was a tough guy. My dad was a tough guy. He was a broken man, just because he was the pastor of a little tiny conservative church, borderline legalistic church. He was bipolar, and I
Mhm.
wrote about it in a couple of books. And he passed away a couple of years ago, to tell you the truth. And we had a peaceful chat before he passed away, but near the end of his life, we did not have much of a relationship. He was kind of a dangerous man, I felt like, and
Mm.
but he had gotten really up in years. But yeah, I had the man that people loved on Sunday morning was not the man that raised me. The man that we saw on Monday and Tuesday was abusive and was very unfaithful in his marriage. Many times
Mm.
he was just not a good fella. And yet he would preach on Sunday. And the great lesson of that in my life, Nazareth, was it showed me the power of who God was, not the power of my father. It showed me that God still works irregardless of how broken the vessel is, that a broken clay pot can still hold fresh and beautiful water from the Holy Spirit. And I would see people become know Jesus on Sunday morning. I would hear sermons that were great sermons my dad would preach, and I saw the Holy Spirit work in his life, and it taught me God doesn't need any of us. He's still going to be God, even when we are mess ups. He's still going to be God. And so that was a good lesson. My mother was really a strong Christian woman. She wasn't a strong wife, or she'd have knocked him on the head every now and then, or she wasn't a strong mom because we got by with way too much. But what she was a beautiful woman who loved Jesus and constantly, constantly worked to keep our eyes on Jesus. And so that was a real redeeming thing. But as a teenage girl, when you grow up in a very small pastor's family, you rely on your siblings a lot. You become best friends. We moved around a lot, and so you become that's your circle of influence, are your siblings. And so I had an older brother, an older sister, and a little sister. But by the time I was 18, both those girls had gone to heaven. One was killed in a car accident,
Oh,
and one passed away with leukemia. And so it was just my brother and I for many, many years growing up. My mother eventually remarried, thank you, Jesus, because we got her a husband. We prayed her a husband. And when my dad left town, I knew it was hard because she was so lonely and we were so poor. When your dad's the pastor and he leaves, there goes your house you live in, the car you get to drive, your paycheck, everything, and where you go to church and all the friends that you've had. And so I love that I lived in a little town in Tennessee, so that when my dad left, everybody knew everybody's business, and it was embarrassing. And he left this
mm,
woman in town, and you feel like you're wearing the scarlet letter, and yet in this little town in Tennessee, people rallied around. They took care of my mother and I in such a good way, and it was so precious that. So fast forward now 30 some years, and when my husband died,
David,
I
yes.
I know you knew David and he loved you, but he loved your comedy so much. He would
Oh.
quote your stuff and he would try to do it in your accent, and it was really and he was really bad. But
I'm really bad doing it in my own accent.
but what was so sweet is I moved back to that little town where when my sisters died, and
Oh.
when I was in high school, where this is also where I met David, was this. So I
Right, in
moved
high
back to this
school.
little town in Ashland City, Tennessee, is where I live now. And when you have walked a road of carrying all types of grief, and that's everything from an estranged child to a broken heart to losing your mother. My mother was so my mother was so important to me. And that little
Mhm.
guy right there, that little fuzzy thing, Jack Bauer, he's been with me for 15 years and he's not doing very good. He's it's probably Jesus is going to come for him soon, and that'll be the hardest one of all those people I've lost. I'm probably going to be a basket case over the
Really,
dog.
for over this one? Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. I know a church that lay hands on dogs, but
Oh, that's
they're
the
not in Tennessee or in California probably, but no.
He's so cute. He just raises an eyebrow every now and then, like, what is she saying now? Yeah.
Now, with all this hardship, you were able to go on stage and make people laugh
Mm.
and laugh. And you're the only, you're one of the very few, again, that you went up and at the end, you opened up yourself to everybody in the audience and shared exactly that, what happened to your father, your
Yeah.
loss.
Or
And
what's going on in my life, right? I've always, and not every comic has to do that, as you well know. We've got some wonderful, hilarious people out there and having just a good laugh is good medicine. But but for some reason, for early on in my career, as the Lord was opening doors, I always decided I would use the laughter as an opening act. That the
mm,
that the concert is real. I mean, the laughter and the comedy is really just a way to lure people in so that they'll
exactly.
listen to the message. It's always been my MO, and which is also probably why I will never have an HBO special. I will never be on Comedy Central. This is why at the party they go, "Yeah, we've never heard of you." I'll have a wall full of gold records, but nobody at Comedy Central's ever heard of me.
Right.
And I I chose that. That was my choice. And there have been days, I'll be honest, that I lament going, I've been doing this for almost 30 years and I've never been invited to the Tonight Show. What is wrong with me? My career's on the toilet. And then I realized that was not what I chose. I made a choice early on that what I did would point the way to Christ always. And even in talking about tough stuff, I wanted to point the way to Christ. And then talking about hilarious stuff, I wanted to point the way to Christ. And so when that becomes your thesis, when that becomes the reason you do what you do, then it does put limitations on, I probably won't ever
It,
get an Oscar, but I might get
it,
a George, who whatever
You
that is.
know, I'm in the same boat, because
Yeah.
and I had people, very well-meaning people say, Ness, why can't you just close on the laugh, on the standing ovation? And I
Oh
go,
yeah, that moment
that's
it said,
not,
thank you, good night. That's my time.
yes,
I don't know
that's
how to
not
do
mine.
that.
No,
I know I
I'm
can't do that.
opening. I said, our goal from doing comedy is to lower the people's walls so
Yes.
the Holy Spirit can hit. And in the last 5 minutes, of our show when we do an invitation or come forward, and people say that's why, you know what, nobody knows who we are on Comedy Central or stuff. It doesn't
Right.
matter. The life, the women that you change, the people that your lives were changed because of you, those gonna, I think they're gonna be an award show in heaven for us.
I think we'll walk in the pearly gates and Jesus will hand us the People's Choice Award. There you go. You know,
And he'll
whose
ask for
choice
an
do you want
autograph.
to be? That's right. I would rather be God's Choice Award than the People's Choice, even though we are blessed. You know, I find that, and I know in your career, because I've been a Nazareth fan for a long time. You
Oh,
get
thank you.
corporate work. I used to get corporate work all the time, and I would go, "Well, how did y'all hear about me? For State Farm Insurance, whatever." He goes, "Well, we need a comedian we can trust." Because we had a
That's right.
comedian and they were so dirty or whatever. I found that being clean gave me more work than
Yes.
trying to be blue or trying to be like those raunchy girls at the comedy club. I got a lot of work because I could be trusted. Now I've had a few times where they'll say, "Hey, this is for our employees of blah blah blah," and if you don't mind toning down some of the Jesus
Yeah.
stuff. And
Exactly. Yes.
and so
Yes.
I always have those ways of still doing it, even though they don't know you're doing it.
Without telling them. Yeah.
Going,
I love
I've
that.
been asked to tone down the Jesus stuff, so I'm just going to sing about it, and they all laugh. And so there are ways you get around it, but nowadays, if I am blessed that now people that don't like me, they don't come see me. If they don't like you, they ain't gonna buy a ticket.
Yes.
Becoming a ticketed artist has its advantage because that weeds out a lot of the people that hate you.
Exactly. That the way, yeah, they want to pay to
I hate her, but I
criticize
ain't gonna spend no money on her. Yeah.
Well, I remember one time I was reading one of your books, and you
Yeah.
said your family had to take you to the ER because you were in a deep depression.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
And that
tell us
was
about it,
after surgery.
because this is a perfect time to talk about
Yeah.
that right now. A lot of people are watching, are going, they're anxious,
Yes.
maybe not depressed. Tell us about that and how you got out of it.
I'm still in it, but I'm highly medicated now. I
How
never
can we get the medicine?
That's exactly right.
Is
Call
it?
your doctor. I never dreamed I would become a poster child for depression. And I
Oh,
really thought when I got depressed, my career would probably be over. I was almost 20 years into this, doing it. I mean, at a fast pace and like what it's like, busy, 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 gone, gone, gone. And my doctor says now, many years later, you look back and it was people go, "Why did you get depressed?" Sometimes there's no reason. Sometimes it's just all of a sudden there's a brain chemistry uh malfunction. And sadly, after this quarantine, we're going to find a lot of people fall into that because what happens in your brain chemistry, and I'm not an expert, I'm just an expert on what my doctor tells me about me. Your
mhm.
brain gets used to operating at a certain level,
Mm,
and at a certain level of serotonin, at a certain level of how much brain chemistry it takes to balance your emotions. And your brain will get used to operating, and it might get used to operating like this. And then things are better outside and things are good and you're back to work, but you can't figure out why you can't get this up here to this level. And it's because it's gotten so accustomed to being worried or being depressed or out of work or out of shape or eating a little too much junk food, while you're in quarantine. Your brain chemistry has gotten so used to operating like this, you cannot get it to level out. And so then
mm,
sometimes you need a little bit of medicine, or you got to have some talk therapy, or you got to have somebody to help you start bridging this gap so that your brain chemistry is operating at a more easier level. For me, my brain chemistry started getting uneven. My serotonin and my norepinephrine, or whatever it's called, was not. I know this sounds like fancy words, but for some reason, the things that geared my emotions were not aligned, and a lot of that was, they believe, was overwork, gone on the road too much. What could have been the onset of menopause. Bleh, hate that because I was getting old. So it could have been a lot of things on a physical level that
mm.
contributed contributed to me, my being all down and depressed, and then the highs, were way up here. And so that trying to make it even. That's why when people are bipolar, they're like this, and they have to take medicine to make that get even.
Right.
And so for me, I got more and more out of whack. And for me, my high was not the danger zone. The low was the danger zone for me, because I was so depressed I wanted to die. And my daughter was home from college one day, and I had been in the bed probably 3 or 4 days. I thought I was having the flu. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And then I would
Mm,
start crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And I didn't want to eat. Was not interested in the things that I used to be interested in. And I just thought I'm ruining my life, and all the shame of your past and the shame
mm,
of your past sins would just come back and haunt you. And you're just haunted by the old, terrible voices of your past. And for me, I had a lot of things that I had stuffed down from my childhood that I hadn't talked about. And when you stuff things away, believe me, I want to tell you something. Your body will react at some point. So
mm.
it's better to journal or to have a therapist you could talk to, because you got to keep that stuff out of your body. Because if you don't get that out, it's going to manifest itself somewhere. High blood pressure. It's going to manifest itself in depression. It's going to manifest itself in aches and pains and joints. And so the best thing is to keep it all out. And when you've had trauma like I had had in my childhood, and you stuffed it for so long, then you couple that with the constant adrenaline up here, being funny, funny, funny in front of thousands and thousands, and then go home and you're exhausted. Then go be funny and
Yes.
funny again, and then be exhausted. And that back and forth and back and forth. All that to say, this person that was so out of whack was ready to kill herself. And
Mm.
I was smart enough to tell my family, and they were smart enough to get me some help. And they took me to Vanderbilt, and I went to the psychiatric hospital. And there's nothing really funny about a psychiatric hospital, but I'm a comedian, so you find something. I think one of the funniest things that ever happened to me at the psychiatric hospital was my son, who which he
Zach.
would,
Oh,
if
he's
he
funny.
would do it, would be a funnier comedian than any of us. He is a funny guy. But anyway, he packed an overnight bag for me. And one of the things he put in the overnight bag, which I thought was so sweet, and he was a teenager at the time, was my Bible, a picture of my family. I thought that was so sweet. And those were things I didn't ask him to pack. I had just, called him and told him a list of things. And he packed a t-shirt to sleep in, and it had a Tweety bird on the front of it. It had Looney Tunes across the top.
That's Zachary.
Yeah, and he had just pinned a note to it that said, "Mom, thought this would be really funny."
that that's fun. When you raise kids being a comedian or comedian,
Yeah.
some of the serious stuff they're laughing. I'm like, oh, I guess it's my fault. I raised them that way. That's not funny, but it is.
I know. I had a hard time. Zachary, he was that child, which so was I. He was that child that if he was getting ready to get a spanking, he knew exactly how to make you laugh, and you just couldn't get him. Then you just go to your room, stop making your mother laugh. But I learned probably more about I learned so much about my life, my mental health at the hospital. I learned about nutrition. I learned little tricks of the trade to stay out of the
Mm,
deep and dark places. I learned so much that I don't know I would have learned any other way. I probably would have not have been open enough to listen any other way. And so that's a real blessing. That becomes that verse in the Bible that says, "And God will work all things for good." It's
yes.
hard to believe right now that someday this virus is going to be for good, but I have already seen the good coming out of this. The family time that people haven't had a chance to have, the family time they needed to realize our family is a mess.
That's
you know the awareness of the whole world turning to think about their eternal life. And
right.
so that verse that says God will work all things for good, it is really true. He really will do that out of the toughest circumstances. And so doesn't mean he causes it, all the time. It just says he will take whatever you're going through and he'll work it for good. And
Amen.
so being in the psychiatric hospital, I learned a lot. I learned the intolerance, even in the Christian world, about mental illness, and that was something I
Ah,
needed to know. I had no idea when I wrote a book called Laughing in the Dark. A lot of Christian bookstores wouldn't put it on their shelf because I talked about pro medicine and how good
Huh.
medicine is. And what's so crazy? Then the world started asking for it, and they put it back on their shelf.
Of course,
So
there's money in it.
yeah, exactly right. And that kind of ticked me off, to tell you the truth. But what people don't realize when they start these judgmental ideas about where depression comes from, or mental illness comes from, that it's really everybody until heaven. No one's going to have the perfect body.
Hmm.
Even Jennifer Aniston is not that perfect. Tatum Channing is not that perfect. He's close, but he's not that close. But all that to say, we're all going to have something going on in our bodies that we have to pay attention to. And so therefore mental illness is the same way. It's just the disease that's affecting your brain. Diabetes is affecting your pancreas, whatever makes insulin. Your
Yeah.
arthritis is affecting your joints. And so mental illness is something that's affecting your brain and your emotion and how you feel and what you think. And I learned so much. I learned how to not be ashamed of that, but to just embrace it and go, okay, this is the disease I have to work on. Yours might be blood pressure. I don't know. So this is the disease I have to work on. And so when I have to work on it, one, be faithful to my medicine and keep working at it until you get the right one. And medicine for mental illness is just like it is for any other right now. The testing all kinds of medicines for this COVID-19.
Yeah.
But they'll come up with something. And that's what's going to happen with you. And you are deeply depressed and you need that jump start. And you got to get your brain chemistry back together again, because you're going to go back to work. It might be that you're going to have to take some medicine that helps bridge that gap a little bit till your body gets a jump start, and then you'll slowly come off of it. When I left Vanderbilt Psychiatric Hospital, I guess it's been 10, 12 years ago, I was taking 365 milligrams of Effexor. I was taking a mood stabilizer called Lamictal at the same time. I was highly medicated. I would still weep and cry. And my sister-in-law who traveled with me, Doris, that you've met, Nazareth, she would hand me the microphone and here, put your lipstick on. You can do this. And I would walk out there and do what I knew worked, and you just do what you do. And then I'd hand her the microphone back and go back to the bus and sob and cry again until the next time, until my body got back, it's like a slow moving train till the body started working again and the chemicals started working again and the medicine started working. And now as I sit here all these years later, my maintenance dose, the only medicine I take besides vitamin D and, like everybody should be taking right now, and vitamin C, is at 39 milligrams of Effexor. I mean, I've gone down to that much. And so because I carry that disease in my body, I may be on that till Jesus comes. I may not, but I'll probably be on that till Jesus comes.
But that's a blessing. That's a miracle of God. Like some people say, no, Jesus can heal you. You don't need the medication. No,
right.
God allowing you to be with a physician who knows exactly the right medication. That's God's involvement in this.
I agree. And sometimes when we are rearing, back our pride of going, I don't want to take medicine. I want the Lord to heal me right now. I want to go, who do you think you are? I wanted the Lord to heal a lot of people in my life, and he chose not to. So therefore, the most humbling thing I can do is know that Jesus wants me disciplined. He wants us to live a holy life, which means he wants us to be a disciplined child. And so in order to discipline me so that I know I have to rely on him, I have to take my medicine, because I know it was him that sent that my way. I know I have to rely on him, because I have to start my day in the mornings with praise music and reading my Bible. Because if I don't, then I got to struggle the rest of the day to get this head back, head together.
Have you ever been funnier on the medication? At one point you go, that's funny because I'm highly medicated, or no?
I wonder, I think there came at some point in all of this, Naz, there came a depth to my work that I didn't have before. And I also think there came a real comfortableness in my own skin that came. I probably, I fuss at myself. I'll get on the bus at night and go, okay, I probably shouldn't have said that. I get a little edgy, especially talking about the lack of sex these days, because, I've been widowed now for a while. And so that's been on my mind. And so in my concerts, which my audience, as you know, is mostly women, so we get by with talking about a lot of things. But
Yes.
I think I'm probably a little edgier than most, and so and I think that's come with just getting comfortable of going, you know what, this is who I am. I'm not trying to offend you or, make you walk out, but if you do, bye, you know. See ya.
Yeah.
And especially what comes with longevity in my career. If I've written 16 books and had 29, projects out there, and gold records and platinum. If you can't see something or hear something or read something that shows you my heart by now,
I give.
I'm not going to
Remember,
try. Yeah.
remember, I played your dad once, couple times when you
Yes.
first became widow, and this guy was hitting on you, and I had to jump in.
Yes. It's really sad when that doesn't even happen anymore.
It's funny because you came out of this whole depression, and a few years later, David, the love of your life, your husband, from
Yeah.
since you were in high school,
Yes.
he dies,
Yes.
and he had a drinking problem. And the reason I
Yeah.
bring that up in the last day, because you started, and this is amazing. If people don't respect you for your beliefs or anything, in addition to her comedic work, Shonda has used her success to help others. And in 2006, she founded Branches Recovery Center, which offers counseling and treatment to those with depression, anxiety, addiction, regardless of their ability to pay.
Right.
Is that still going?
Still going all these years later.
God bless you.
Not just still going strong, but it's gangbusters. We have 5 branches counseling centers now. And we worried with this virus, how do we pay our doctors, and how do we pay our counselors, and how do we pay our administrators, and all these branches counseling centers across the country. And the Lord is faithful and good. And online counseling has been just as busy and heavy, because people and I even think after this it's going to be just as bad. People are going to come out of this learning so much about themselves, or needing to know some more things about themselves, or needing some counseling, and we don't turn anybody away. We have wonderful supporters who donate money so that we can still pay our counselors to counsel for free, and I am a big supporter of that. People always go, wow, you're really rolling in it. You sold 3,000 tickets tonight. And I go, no. I have a lot of things I support, and I live on a budget like everybody else in the world.
I don't want to say the same thing, but I started a ministry 11 years ago called Voice of the Refugees. We help refugees,
Yeah.
and now twice. In fact, today we might open 3 days a week, and just feeding people. Yesterday all day we fed over 500 families. So yeah, some of the money that you guys pay for and normally I
That's
don't do a
exactly
lot of
right.
ticketed because I give the gospel at the end and I want people to come. But you're right. People don't know the heart like your heart. You want to
Yeah.
support all these ministries. Now there's comedians listening right now and watching. What do
Uh-oh.
you think, from your opinion, Shonda? You think, like, I saw some of your events were moved till August. Do you think
Yes.
by August you think people will still come see us?
I hope so. I hope so. The hard part, and let's be very honest, the difficult thing for us, we immediately, and I was blessed that a whole lot of shows had already sold out. A lot of people just wanted their money back. And Awakening Events that's I work with, that's one of the promoting companies. I think they gave a lot of people their money back, but a lot of them are people were just willing to wait until it's
Mhm.
rescheduled. And most all my shows have been rescheduled starting in August. Well, as things go, there's 2 worries there, and absolutely likely, and understandably so. When we start back to work, people are not going to have extra dollars to go spend on a comedy concert. And so we're trying to figure out, or any kind of concert,
Mm.
churches are going to be suffering for people to remember to pay their tithe. People are going to really, the economy is going to be a really broken place. So that's one little bit of a worry. The second is just the logistics of it. Everybody's rescheduling. And so for me, especially when I work in a lot of theaters, a lot of big churches, they're not going to be available. Just finding a building available, because everybody from Chonda Pierce to Frank, to Kirk Franklin to, AC/DC, everybody's going to be trying to reschedule. And so you're just limited on your space and your buildings and where you're going. It'll be hard to get a bus. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Everybody works by bus. And so every country act out there, everybody, so to take my crew and my folks on the bus, we might be back in the minivan with a box of cassette tapes out in the parking lot of Walmart. That might be
Exactly.
where and that'll be fine. And when that time comes, God will provide. And I am not worried. Today, I say that, and Glenda's probably going to come around the corner and smack me on the back of the head. Today, I got a little scared. This has been the first time, what they don't realize. I have always taken summer and winter off. I've done that for 25 years because my children were at home summers and winters, and I just decided I would be home. When they're home 24 hours, I want to be home 24 hours.
Right.
Because that was probably the deal my husband and I made. You're not leaving with me with them all, and so I quit work in November, and then I take December and January off, and then I slowly start back up in February. Well, I shot a movie, so that put everything kind of behind. So I didn't start back to work until March the 7th.
Ouch.
And the world shut down March the 8th.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a paycheck since November, and I probably won't get a paycheck now until September. Right. Now I'm very blessed that I, saved a little for a rainy day, but thanks to Dave Ramsey, but I'll be calling Dave Ramsey soon going, okay, Branches needs some money. I can eat, but Branches needs to keep the lights on, So today I got worried. And like you and like everybody out there that's our performers, we don't do this by ourselves. We have a staff of people that if I don't work, they don't get paid.
Right. They don't work. They don't get paid. And that's the problem.
And I do worry about that. And I have tried to look out for them, even though it's really not, I don't have to because they're contractual workers. But you have to. You have to let, I went down to my account. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I went down to this nearby Italian restaurant we have in our little town, and I love it so much. And they're really dear friends of mine. But I knew that our little local mom and pop restaurants, our little businesses around in my little town are hurting, and we're going to lose a lot of them. And we don't have that many in Ashland City, Tennessee. And so I went down and I put on my little Facebook page, okay, get ready, get set, go. I'm going to buy your dinner if you come and get takeout at Vocolo's between now and 7 p.m. Ready, set, go. Thousands of dollars later.
Ouch.
I had no idea that many people on my Facebook page lived in Ashland City, but it was such a blessing to do it. And
to the business, they loved you.
But it made in the paper and all that. And that was not why I did it. I did it because I wanted to remind people, hey, this restaurant is open. You drive up, they'll bring your food out to you, and you can go on your way. And I wanted to do that for other businesses in our little town. And people that have the means can do that. I saw it, and I am nowhere near successful like the Amy Grants and the Kirk Franklins of the world, or Bon Jovi. Have you seen what he does?
No, I didn't know.
Kitchen. And he has been every day making hundreds and hundreds and thousands of meals for people. And I don't know him. I don't even know what his faith is or whatever, but I will marry him.
Well, you have to get my okay first.
Okay. I'll lead him to Jesus, and then I will marry him.
And then, that's awesome.
Sometimes.
We've been, as I said, this last, we started with 1 day a week. Right now, 3 days a week, we're feeding people. But God is
Okay.
providing, those places
Yes.
are just giving them more food than we, so we're
Can pick them
passing
up.
this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Talk to me about your, what do you call it? Um, the latest movie that you're making.
Well, I'm very excited. It's all in the can, as they say. It's all done. So it was supposed to come out hopefully in the fall. I think we're
May.
pushing it now to the
Oh,
spring. Yeah, I think now we're going to push it because there'll be so many movies being released, and my little movie will get lost in the shuffle. So, you don't want to compete against Star Wars or something, which that has happened before. So I just and I feel bad. I don't even know what happened to Selfie Dad. I had a small part in a Michael Jr. movie not long ago called Selfie Dad,
uh-huh.
and it was supposed to be released in April. So I don't know what they're doing. I'm
I
sure
don't
they'll
think
move
it's
it.
it's not a good
Yeah,
idea.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll move it, or they'll push it to Netflix or something, where you can watch it at home. But all that to say, I'm really excited. Probably 7, 8 years ago, maybe longer than that now, because he's been gone 6 years already. Can you believe David's been gone for six
I
years?
know. I
I can't
know.
believe that. Sometimes it feels like it was yesterday, but anyway, years ago, David and I wrote a story. Just laying in bed one night. We were always writing children's books, or some
He
little
was
fun.
a great writer.
Was
He
a
was a
great
great
writer.
writer.
Most of his stories was about killing people and burying them in the backyard. He was a mystery writer. But
This is just to keep you in check. That's why he
yeah,
wrote it.
yeah, to keep me on the road. I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah, if she comes home,
Yeah.
that's
When
funny.
your husband is sitting there writing a story for Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine, he used to write for them all the time, and Alfred Hitchcock. And it's
Wow.
How to Murder Your Spouse. And you look over, oh, it's so good to see you, dear. Yeah, he used to write scary stuff. But all that to say, we wrote this movie where I was a Walmart greeter who had
Oh,
to
I
win.
can see you perfectly in that role.
Exactly, where I had to be a Walmart greeter and I had to win a karaoke contest because my house was falling in a sinkhole. And so that was the script, and we didn't do it very well in script form, so we called Martha Bolton, which
Oh,
Martha,
I love Martha.
and
Yeah.
Martha's great at making screenplays, and so she made it into the perfect screenplay. I had given it to a man named Larry Bresner, who produced all of Robin Williams movies.
Mhm.
And he was so gracious and sweet to read it. And I was a nobody, but my manager happens to be in the same firm that managed Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and all them. So
That's right.
I was bold enough to go, hey, I wrote a movie. It's my only movie I've ever written. And so we took it to him, and my husband was like, don't show it to anybody. It's not ready. But I did. And he marked it up with red ink, going, that this movie would cost millions of dollars to make. And I go, well, I don't have millions of dollars. And because we couldn't get Walmart on board because they didn't like my politics. And evidently they're picky about their best. And then also the karaoke part to pay for all the rights of all the songs I wanted in there.
Oh,
And then to feel my house slowly falling in a sinkhole, yeah, and not being in California, that's going to cost a lot of money.
right.
And so, and so we just put it on the back burner and said, forget about it. And I was filming Selfie Dad, this movie that's coming out with Michael Jr. And one of the guys, producers, says, have you ever tried your hand at writing a movie, around a character that would be a lot about yourself? And I go, well, it's funny you ask, because my husband and I wrote a movie. Well, make a long story short, it fell into the hands of Chris Dowling, who's a great director and a sweet young man. It's like a son to me, a sweet young man. And he took it and he fixed it where it's filmable. And so,
Most effective.
yes, where we could afford it, and it was still hard to do. But I wound up being a waitress at the Biscuit Barrel. And I have to win a karaoke contest at the county fair because my house is being repossessed, in back tax because of back taxes. Well, we filmed the whole thing here in my little town, so the whole town got behind it and was so helpful. And our mayor was so helpful to let us. Can we borrow the Ferris wheel? Sure, And We had so much fun filming it. But it was the hardest work I've ever done in my life. It's
Oh,
grueling from 5 o'clock in the morning until way after midnight. Sometimes it is you're filming it we didn't have the budget where they just take months in Italy to film one scene.
right.
We had to just do it as fast and furious as we could, but it still turned out really, and it turned out funny. It just turned out really funny, and
Ah,
I'm really proud of it. Yeah,
that's awesome. I have two questions for you. I know
but
an hour has passed. I can't believe it. We have
thank
7 minutes so quickly. Number one, what's the funniest or the weirdest thing that happened to you performing or on stage or something?
really.
Yeah,
Oh
if you
Lord,
can
there's
think of one.
so many. Couple of one that comes to mind right away is, and I don't know if this has happened to you, but they're always butchering my name to introduce me.
Oh, of
They're
course.
always calling me something that my name is so hard to pronounce. I guess even today,
Chandra.
yeah, they always say that. I used to never correct them, but I've gotten bolder lately where I correct people going, well, there's no R in my name. And today a DJ said, are you sure?
I'm
Well, it's my
sure you
name. I'm
are.
pretty sure. That was the funniest comeback anybody had ever said to me. But I was, I remember early on in my career, somebody got up to introduce me and they read like you did. They were reading the whole little bio and everything. And I was listening to it going, I don't really remember some of this stuff. Where does they get this information? And of course, me, I'm not really halfway paying attention. I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. And all of a sudden, then he goes, and here she is, Miss Maudie. And I was like, I'm not Miss Maudie. So instead of being embarrassed, I was worried I might be in the wrong church. I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. And I go, are you looking for Miss Maudie? Because I'm not Miss
I'm not Miss Mo.
But he was like, I'm sorry, that's next week. Here, what's your name?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's that's
yes.
why I play a video before I stop letting people MCs because they think they're gonna be funny and they're always like, "There's
Oh
a
yeah.
joke." I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
"No, no,
Yeah,
just
they
play the
always do
video."
that. So, that was early in my career. I think another really difficult time was I was in the middle of a joke and the Little Women's Fellowship leader comes and taps me on the shoulder. First of all, scares me to death because you're talking, you're not
Yeah.
paying attention. And it scared me. And she says, may I have the microphone just a moment? I mean, right before you deliver the punchline, you set up this
Ouch.
great story. And she wants the microphone. And then she announced that a group of the ladies, there was two vans of ladies and one van didn't make it. And they discovered they had had a car accident. Someone was
Ah,
killed. Could you all meet us in the foyer? We need to make some arrangements for the rest of you. And here you go. And then hands the microphone
finish
back.
your joke. Finish your act now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And which was not an appropriate time because people were going, oh, it was very inappropriate to finish the joke. So I just said, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's all go to the potty, and and we took a few minutes break and I was sitting backstage or coming out of the bathroom or something. And this little old lady came up to me and said, I don't want to seem insensitive, but what was the punchline of that joke?
well,
Which made me feel good. Yeah.
I know your movie is not out yet. When it's ready, I would love to talk more about it and
Okay.
all that, and would love, but talk to as we close, talk to a young woman who may be abused by her dad, maybe thinks that life is so horrible because she's been
Right.
through a lot, and I know she haven't been through half of what you've been through. What do you tell her to encourage her? I know earlier you mentioned something great, which is, what, Jesus is still Jesus, and you're a great example because a lot of, what, I had a comedian student, where because their parents were rough, they've
Right.
already backslidden, and now they're talking bad about the whole faith thing. But you're
Right.
the one who stood. You have every reason not to follow Christ, but you did. What do you
Yes.
tell that young lady? And we
I
close.
I may have every reason, but I don't have every right because he did so much more for us than what we've ever been through. And who am I to discount the price that Christ paid on the cross? And so, but I say this to those who are struggling with the depression or perhaps in this quarantine time and you've spent too much alone with your own thoughts. there's a couple of things. I love the verse in the Bible that says, whatsoever is pure, good, holy, think on these things. And let me give you a practical way of thinking on these things. I think one of the greatest gifts in our mental health arsenal is Post-it notes, or just a little square piece of paper. And write down what was one of the funniest things you can remember from your childhood. Maybe it was just a person that used to make you laugh. Maybe it's a person that makes you laugh now. What was one of the nicest books you ever read that just made you feel good about yourself? What's one of the best days you've ever had in your life? Maybe it was your wedding day, or maybe that was the worst one.
Maybe.
Or maybe it was the birth of a child. Maybe it was something you accomplished. You graduated from high school. Whatever that is that the minute I started talking about good stuff, write those down. Put a Post-it on each one. And then you put it on your fridge or your mirror, wherever you're going to look constantly. And the reason I tell you that, it's real quickly to lament the sad stuff. Oh, my sister's gone. My mother's dead. My husband's gone. I'll never have sex again, and you just write all that down. It's easy to write the bad stuff. I try to encourage people to write Post-it notes of victories and fun and hilarious. And maybe it's just a funny picture out of a magazine. Cut it out and tape it everywhere where you'll see it. Excuse me. That is the pattern of goodness. And if God did all those things in the past, he doesn't just stop. So that's a pattern of goodness that will continue in this life. It will continue when this is over. And so you keep your mind set on those things. And don't let the devil have one moment of reminding you of all the bad stuff. So you think on those things, and that keeps your mind busy. Maybe it's a day that you can spend scrapbooking or going through magazines and cut out the funniest picture you've seen in a magazine or the dumbest advertisement you've seen in a magazine. In other words, start training your mind to find the good and the funny and the right and the joyful, and then turn the television. After this chat here, turn the TV off, turn the laptop off, spend some time, breathing in nature and keeping the lights on if it's cloudy outside. Playing. I'm sure my neighbors think Kirk Franklin and the family live in my bathroom because I play Kirk Franklin music so loud. I'm sure they think Danny Goki is staying in my guest room because I blare good Christian music that keeps me uplifted, and I get my mind away from anything that the devil could use to bring me down.
Amen. Amen. Chonda, thank you so much. I want to thank you also. One of my best-selling books is called Hope in 24 Hours, and you forwarded.
Oh, that's such a good book.
Thank you. Also, tonight, every night at 8:30 at night, we have a live with Naz on my personal page, which is Comedian Nazareth 1. I knew you came in once. The goal is to make people laugh. So you come in, you throw some couple of punchlines because I always prepare the setup. And so if anybody needs to be lifted up, and I love you so much. Thank you. You've been a blessing, not just to me, but the entire Christian Comedy Association.
Thank you, Naz.
It was a funny farm where we had it.
Yes, you blessed me. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks.
Bye.